I'm Tony Pinville, CEO and co-founder of Heuritech. We are delighted to present you our new trend forecasting platform. This year, it became apparent to many of us that it's hard to predict the future. The fashion industry definitely learned this lesson. And with consumer behaviors and desire, they are shifting faster than ever. It only takes one look at social media to see this. It's important to notice these early signals before they become a widespread trend. These early signals, when caught by AI technologies, allow brands to instantly adapt to demand all over the world. The question to ask yourself is this: consumers are moving quickly, but are you taking the lead? This is why Heuritech uses AI and data to scan millions of social media images in order to analyze the past and the present to get the clue of the future of fashion trends. Our mission is to empower both creative and analytic teams with predictive and actionable insights, from design to buying to launch. Our platform helps them take data-driven decisions to grow the business while supporting cross-divisional communication. Our product is a platform available online which provides data-driven forecasting, merchandising, product, design, and marketing, accessed to predictive analytics on market and trend dynamics, on consumer segmentation, as well as inspirational mood boards to help build the collection. For example, you can see here that we predicted the return of the famous tie and dye this year with a huge increase of plus 68% this fall versus last year. How Heuritech collects data on social media to anticipate customer tastes. To achieve these insights, we have a unique technology combining the science of AI and fashion. We analyze millions of pictures on social media to spot key trends worldwide with 1 year forecast at a 90% precision rate. This methodology is in 3 steps. First, looking at what consumers and influencers are wearing, then applying our image recognition to detect fashion details such as beige high boots, and finally, processing the data with our own forecasting algorithm, predicting what is coming next. Over the last 10 months, we ran a number of feedback sessions with our users, paired with user studies and interviews with teams and C-levels. With this feedback, we designed a brand new version of our trend forecasting platform, which now has the key features for your team to make faster, more efficient decisions. The new platform benefits include empowering teams to think more data-driven, making more confident decisions during a time of uncertainty, encouraging cross-team collaboration by speaking in the same language and using the same tool for design, merchandising, and marketing. And then comparing your sales data with market data to grow a centralized base of knowledge. Today, we will show you our platform through different use cases. Pedro, our senior product manager, will lead the presentation. Julie, our fashion creative director, will describe how we curate and identify trends. Thomas, our head of R&D, will explain our in-house AI technology behind the scene. Anne, head of delivery, will show you how we are able to learn and identify key fashion elements through images. And Deborah, as data scientist, will explain how we have built a very accurate forecast model able to predict trends up in 1 year in advance. Pedro, the floor is yours.
Thank you, Tony. Hello, everyone. My name is Pedro. I'm a product manager here at Heuritech, and I'm excited to talk to you a little bit more about our product today, how we developed and built this new version of the product, and also show you a sneak peek of how the product's like. So before we jump into the demo, I would just like to talk a little bit about this, about our product development process. I'd like to share this quick slide with you. I'm pretty sure you, as fashion professionals, you must be very familiar with all these key moments in your collection: the design, the collection brief, collection planning, and intuition validation. But these are also extremely important for us because our whole product is being built upon these key moments. So regardless if you're a designer, a merchandiser, a product manager, you should find a feature in our product that will help you throughout your decision-making process. Just to give you a quick idea of how we go about developing a product at Heuritech. Our goal at the product team is really to bring together different fields of expertise and translate our AI technology into a usable product for our clients. So just to give you a big picture of the different stages of product development at Heuritech, first of all, we have the exploration and research phase. So as a product manager, my number one role is really to understand the needs of fashion professionals through a lot of qualitative research and also relying on our in-house fashion expertise, which we'll talk about a little bit later. Then there's a lot of cross-team collaboration to understand what we can or we can't do to actually deliver value and tackle all those challenges that fashion professionals might have. And it is also my job to give our teammates at the product team some space for creative problem solving. So they go through all those different scenarios and try to propose different solutions to help our clients throughout their daily work. Once we have a list of problems and pain points that we want to tackle, and we've tested different solutions, we have to lay out our roadmap and take into consideration not only our client's priority, but our ability to tackle all those problems and deliver value. During the implementation phase, of course, we have to put together all the data science skills to make sure our data is always insightful. We have user experience and interface designers making sure that the data is very easy to interpret, the product is very user-friendly, and also we have the software engineers that make sure everything can be put together, and by then we'll have a product that works, and then we're going to show you a little bit today how it looks like. But then that doesn't end, though. This whole process is a continuous iteration. The product itself is a living, never-ending project. So we also have to keep on gathering feedback and exploring different challenges that fashion professionals might have. And this will close the loop of the product development. So we keep on feeding that back into an exploration and continuously improve our product. So without further ado, I'm gonna start the demo so I can show you what we've worked on the past months. And I'd like to go back to the 4 main scenarios that we showed you before the collection brief, starting with the collection brief, really. So the first thing you see here is a feature that we call the Trend Radar. And its goal is simply to help you spot relevant trends for your next collection. So you notice that here at Heuritech, we divide these trends into 4 different types: the prints and patterns. We'll also have the fabric trends, color trends, and all the shape trends divided into product categories such as shorts and tops. So just to take a sample scenario here, let's pretend with my team as a merchandiser, for example, we're working on a new collection planning. And the first thing I want to know here, like, which are the relevant trends I'm going to add to the brief and to our collection. So let's pretend that I'm really focused on a Japanese market today, and we're working on a collection for next fall 2021. So I'll make sure that filter is set on here. By default, you notice that all the trends that we display are in high season, but I can also switch that to all trends so we have a broader view of all the trends available. So you notice here that all our trends in the screen and this trend radar, all our trends are grouped into this sort of buckets that are designed to make it very easy and quick to spot these relevant trends into different, grouped into different behaviors. So for example, you have the trends that we call the fashion bets. And these are high magnitude trends with growing dynamics. So pretty much trends with a lot of potential. For example, you have here the tie and dye. We can see it's expected to grow by 29% compared to the last fall. It's also a trend with medium magnitude. And its high seasons are summer and fall. And we have here a quick view of the kind of segment they have been using this trend over time. Now, we have other clusters such as the safe bet, which are high magnitude trends with more stable dynamics, or the steady, which are also less risky trends, but lower magnitude that you can bet on. And finally, you have these groups such as the markdown, which are, we call them one-shot trends because they have less long-term potential. For example, we can go over here and take a look at the scarf print. You can see that its growth is actually, well, decreasing by 17% compared to last fall. It's also has a pretty low magnitude. It's a really low volume trend, and its segment is edgy, which lead me to conclude it's maybe a more niche trend for that specific season. So the way I would go about, if I were to shortlist a few trends to add to our collection brief, I would definitely look for some fashion bets, maybe get a couple of these fashion bets to my list because they have a lot of potential. They might give me some market edge, but I also would like to balance my collection. So I'll make sure to add some safe bets. For example, dots, which is also growing, not as much as tie and dye, but it also has a medium magnitude. So I know there's less risk. It makes sense to add quite a few of these, browse through the list and look for other trends that I want to add to the brief as well. And I'll make sure that if I'm really, our team is really insisting to add trends such as scarf print, at least perhaps adjust the quantity or make sure these are not key trends for a collection, so we're not, don't end up with a very risky trend collection for fall 21. And then I'll repeat that sort of exercise with other kinds of trends such as fabrics and colors, so on and so forth. You probably noticed that we get some very specific and interesting trends here in the list, and you probably wondered how we actually include and start out with this list of very relevant fashion trends into our product. So I'd like to invite Julie to talk a little bit about the fashion expertise behind our product.
Hello everyone, I'm Julie. I'm the lead of the fashion team, and yeah, as Pedro said, you might be wondering how this fashion insights get into the product. So basically, I'm going to talk about what my team is doing for Heuritech products. Firstly, we are here to build edgy and fashion-forward panels for each geography and gender, and guarantee that they are representative of the fashion influencers in the industry. Secondly, we build exhaustive architecture of closed typologies for each categories of products aligned with the client's collection, organization, and the market offer. After this, we check with the data scientist alignment of prediction with the market reality. And of course, we infuse the fashion expertise into data insights. More specifically for the product, we work on panels for this release. And you may know that at Heuritech, we have 3 types of panel for each geography, representative of the different consumer segments of the fashion market on Instagram and Weibo. The fashion team is in charge of manually curating what we call the edgy fashion forward panel for each region. And with this manually curated big panel, we are able to construct and develop other panels that are representative of the daily life and main people around the fashion world. Secondly, we work on tags and architecture. The fashion team monitors many sources of fashion words, such as social media, catwalks, press, blogs, customer requests, magazines. And thanks to that, we are able to identify relevant trend signals and detect emerging trends in order to build new categories, architecture, or refine existing one. For instance, if we spotted something new in the market, we are able to, with the delivery team, to put it in the product and make it recognizable for our artificial intelligence, and gather all interesting emerging trends which could become new tags or fill the trend catalog. With the 2000 attributes, or what we call the tag, based on Heuritech fashion expertise and client expectation, we are able to provide tech teams with a detailed and exhaustive architecture for each category we are covering, such as tops, pants, skirts, dresses, and shoes. And in order to train the modules, what we call the modules is basically our artificial intelligence, so that it can be learned to recognize any fashion attribute in a close partnership with the delivery and research and development teams. This is for my part. You can go back, Pedro.
Thank you, Julie. Now let's go back to our collection brief scenario. So I mentioned, we came across this example of tie and dye, and I might have shortlisted this. So I'm very interested in this and considering adding this to my collection brief. But perhaps I'd like to deep dive a little bit and to get some more quantitative and qualitative insights. So now you notice that once I preview this trend, I have this button here that I can go to view trend details, and I'm go right ahead and click on that. Now I have a full report on the tie and dye. This is a series of quantitative and qualitative insights that we provide based on all our data, and that is accessible for any other trend in the platform. So we take this example here, tie-dye fall 2021 in Japan for the female collection. First thing you notice, there's a reminder of the sort of fashion group, or sorry, the fashion cluster that we talked about. So just to have a quick idea of the behavior of that trend. And you probably notice this very interesting behavior and magnitude graph. And what it does here gives you a visibility of the trend over time. So this blue line here, you notice that this trend has been growing last fall, and the dotted line represent everything that we forecast. So it's a future, what we forecast the trend to behave like next fall. You notice the high seasons are summer and fall, which are pretty much represented here on this trend line. There's a reminder of the magnitude. Currently, we have 5 levels of magnitude in Heuritech. We have micro, small, medium, big, and massive. So medium is a pretty reasonable magnitude for a trend like this. And there's a reminder as well of the growth of this trend compared to last fall. So you see this represents pretty much 29% of growth. And we also have a very interesting and actionable insight here, which is what we call the optimal launch, which is pretty much the month where you have the peak visibility of that trend. So within the high seasons for tie and dye, which are summer and fall, you have the month of August representing the peak visibility of that trend. So if I'm considering launching my collection with that trend, I would really make sure that we launch around that month of August or a little bit before, so I can capitalize on that peak of visibility of the trend. And going back into more details here, we also have a reminder of that segmentation data. So I could, for example, assume that tie-dye is pretty much visible throughout the more edgy community, but it's very interesting data here that shows me that it's actually been adopted by mainstream Instagram users and trendy users as well. And then here you have what we call the category breakdown, and what it answers is it gives you an idea of the performance of different categories for that trend. So you probably notice that the category tops is highlighted here, which means that tops perform really well for a tie-dye. At least for the Japanese market here, we've identified 85% of all tie-dye images that we've recognized are seen on tops, which is 20 points more than for all the trends. So for an average trend that we've identified, so tie-dye actually performed better on tops, which is not the case, for example, for skirts, which is almost 3 times less than other trends. So this also gives me an idea if I want to really bet on that trend, I would really consider tops as a very promising category for tie and dye. And finally, here I have a mood board that gives you samples of images that we've recognized. This might also be quite inspirational for designers who might consider seeing how this trend is worn and across all geographies. So we have first here the images in Japan, but then throughout the world how tie-dye is being worn, and these are also examples of the kind of images that we recognized on Instagram. One last functionality I wanted to talk about here once we're in this page is the comparison view. So now we're using this example of the Japanese market. So let's say I also have a strong customer base in Europe. This may be another key market for me. And I would like to see how the trend behaves in these 2 different markets. And I like to compare pretty much tie-dye in Japan to tie-dye in Europe. So I can create this comparison view and change the geography here in this filter. And the first thing I notice is that whereas in Japan, tie-dye is considered a fashion bet, I would know that in Europe is more of a safe bet. It kind of tells me it's a little bit more mature trend in Europe, although it's still expected to grow next fall by 6%, a little bit less, but it's growing nonetheless. The magnitude is pretty much the same, the high seasons as well. And an interesting information here for optimal launch. If I'm considering launching tie-dye for both geographies, I would probably want to launch tie-dye a little bit earlier since its peak visibility in Europe is in July. Segmentation data is pretty much the same, but one last interesting insight here is that whereas in Japan, mostly focus on tops primarily, in Europe, I also have the dress category that is quite promising as well. It's 32% of all images are seen in dresses, and represents, it's much more than what I've seen in Japan, which would be 10%. So this is, a couple examples of how I could compare trends in different geographies, or perhaps different seasons, or different types of trends even. Now, before we move on, you've probably noticed, well, with these sample images and mood boards, you probably asked yourself, how do we even how our artificial intelligence is able to recognize all that and be able to put that here in this report? So I'd like to invite Thomas to talk a little bit more about all the work behind the R&D team.
Thanks, Pedro. So hi, I'm Thomas. I'm the R&D team lead. So our team is in charge of creating all the artificial intelligences that will allow Heuritech to explore fashion trends and products. Our goal is to be able to reliably analyze millions of social media images. By doing so, we can have a realistic and data-driven knowledge of the state of fashion today and in the past, and it will then allow our data science team to forecast the future of fashion trends. To that end, for each image we see on social media, we want to first find all the fashion items in it, and then analyze each of them very finely. For example, if I found a top, I want to know its type, the kind of sleeves it has, how it closes, its colors, textures, and patterns, and many more information. To achieve this goal, we use deep learning. This revolutionary technique to do artificial intelligence started to be successful in research lab between 2012 and 2014. Since then, the number of research publications in the area is growing exponentially. In a nutshell, it consists in learning a neural network, which is a complex series of mathematical transformations. It is well adapted to analyze complex data and solve hard artificial intelligence tasks that could not be done with previous AI methods. However, successfully applying those research results to real-world application is far from being easy. Our role in R&D is to keep up with this scientific literature, try the promising methods we find in it, compare them, adapt them to the singular problems we face at Heuritech. All this to be able to finally predict everything we need very accurately. To that end, we continuously improve our deep learning models and their training process while working closely with the delivery team. This team defines what we need to see and gathers the training data that we use in the R&D team to train our models. And Anne will now tell you a bit more about this. Thank you.
Thank you, Thomas.
Thank you, Thomas. So I'm Anne, head of the delivery team. So in the delivery team, our role is to make sure that we are recognizing the right elements in the image to be able to predict a trend on social media data. So to do so, we organize the trend catalog creation and the trend recognition process. So first, let's take an example. How do we recognize the floral printed midi skirts? So here we can see multiple information in these trends. So we have the skirts, which is a type of garment, floral, which is a type of prints, midi, which is a type of lens. So the first step is about to deconstruct and analyze what makes the trend into specific and precise criteria. For example, here on the slide, we provide a precise definition for floral and midi, aligned with the fashion team. So once we have a specific definition for all these criteria, these specific elements will be learned separately by our technology or modules. So the second step is about planning and organizing the trend recognition process according to our priorities, and we schedule the different steps internally. So once we know what we want to recognize, once we have our roadmap, we can start the training process of our modules. So as we are analyzing several million images, our algorithm needs a huge set of examples to be trained on before being mature enough to predict the trend on social media data. So that's why we have a a dedicated and specific process called labelization. So we are working with a team of operators to manually labelize images to prepare a set of positives and negative tags based on all the precise definition as seen before. And then once our algorithm or module are trained with the data, the last step is about to verify that our trends are accurately predicting the real trends that we want to recognize. So finally, once we get all the green signals after doing multiple investigations, we can create a selection of trends to be plugged in the product, as Pedro presented you. Now I'll let you continue with Pedro.
Thank you, Anne. All right, so let's go back to our demo cases here, demo scenarios. We talked a little bit about how we might leverage the platform for the collection brief, the design brief, and let's talk a little bit about what we call the intuition validation. Let's pretend we're still, looking for our fall 2021 collection in Japan, and we have this perhaps a big debate within the team whether we should add leopard print or not. Some people might be arguing that it's a dying trend. Some might say there's still some potential for next collection, and perhaps it's not a trend that we identified in the trend radar, but we still want to leverage our platform insights to know whether leopard is a go-to trend or not. So you probably notice there's a search engine here in the platform that allows you to search for any trend that we would recognize, that we would identify in the platform. It should be accessible here. So if I'm still interested in the Japanese market, I'll make sure I'll set up that filter, and I'll simply type leopard, and it gives me a number of results, and I want to see the overall leopard print and how this behaves over time. So what I have here, similarly to tie and dye, I have a full report on leopard, and actually it gives me very interesting insights about the seasonality of this trend, and also, most importantly, the forecasted data for this trend's visibility in fall 2021. And it's still considered a safe bet. Actually, if I look into this, it's slightly decreasing, but because of the having a reasonable magnitude, this is not a trend that will be completely dying by 2021. So definitely take that into consideration during our debates as a team. However, I noticed as well that fall is not the high season for this trend. You notice here that the high seasons are spring and winter. So want to keep that in mind if you really want to add that to the collection, or at least make sure perhaps I can cater to the edgy segment, which is predicted to be wearing this trend the most, or even have a double check here in our category breakdown to make sure I minimize the risk as much as I can. I will probably want to focus in a few of the categories that are highlighted here. For example, dresses, which seem to be performing well for this trend, and it's expected to be one of the categories where people use leopard the most. And then, of course, I'll have examples of how this trend is worn. This might give us some insight in what kind of leopard dress that we might want to design, or even what kind of contexts people are wearing this kind of trend. So this is what we call the intuition validation. This can be done at any point before, during, after collection planning, just to back up intuitions that anyone in the team might have with actual hard and qualitative data. So it's a very powerful feature. We probably notice, as powerful as it is, the forecasted data that we showcase for every single trend. We probably wondered how we even come up with all that data. It's not magic. We have data scientists working on this, and we'd like to invite Deborah to talk a little bit about this process.
Thank you very much, Pedro. Hi, everyone. I'm Deborah, and I'm part of the data science team. So I'm going to explain you first how we came up with all of this data after the amazing work of all of the team. So you have to imagine that you have more than 50 million images on which we have recognized thousands of tags on historical data. And so it gives us exclusive Heuritech data of the behavior through times of 1,000 trends. Once you have those trends, you want to know how they are going to behave. To do so, we are using an in-house prediction model, which combines statistical methods and deep learning methods. So how does it work? Well, if you want to know how a trend is going to behave, naturally you will do, okay, how has it behaved? But something else you might want to do is looking at how is it behaving on edgy people? What are the early signals of the trend? Well, the model is doing exactly this. It combines the past of the data as well as what we call exogenous signals and combining it to make a one-year prediction data. And once you have this forecasted data and historical data combined, you can draw really quantified insights to back your intuition. And I think our specificity is that we are going to tackle lots of aspects of the trend, allowing you to build a really complete diagnosis with precise metrics. I'll let you continue, Pedro, presenting it in the product.
Thank you, Deborah. So to wrap up our demo today, I would like to go through one last scenario that we haven't talked about yet, which is the collection planning. So I'll go right here to this feature that we call the assortment mix. So the goal of this feature, assortment mix, is really to help you adjust and balance a collection that's already been planned. You're already decided which trends you like to add to your collection, but now you have to think about how to adjust that collection throughout different markets, different seasons. So the main difference here compared to the other features I showed you, so the entry point is always your product category. So for example, here you have the tops category, and within that specific category, you have breakdown of the market share, the market visibility of these different shapes within tops, the tops category, but also different prints, whether 25%, for example, of tops have been identified with a print, whereas 75% more or less have been identified as plain. You could also dig deeper into, for example, floral trends, floral prints, and you can have an idea of what the different kinds of floral prints have been identified and the breakdown of their visibility in the Japanese market in fall 21. Also, we have a breakdown of all the fabrics and colors with all their various specificities depending on different categories. And the power of the assortment mix really is to really be able to hone down a very specific category. So for instance, let's say I'm a tops product manager for my brand, and I'm in charge of adjusting the collection of blouses. I could even go more in depth and select the blouse category. And let's say we have added to the collection some blouses with the Lavalier collar, as well as some with without any collar. And what it gives me is a pretty good benchmark of where I want to go if I have to assort my collection accordingly. Let's say originally I plan to add 15% of that collection with Lavalier, and what it's telling me, the visibility of that kind of color is actually expected to be around 20%. So I might even increase the share of Lavalier colors that I'm adding to my collection to really optimize my sales. I could do the same exercise with sleeve length or neck lines, for instance. Let's say I've added, I initially planned to add 25% of my blouses with V-neck, and I see here it's expected to be around 18%. So I might adjust that accordingly to reduce overstock as well, for instance. Then I could, again, repeat that exercise with prints. I know that I should probably aim at having around 70% of plain blouses. I know that, within all those prints, floral is one of the strongest one, and I'll have DT flowers. And of course, could also compare what I would add to the collection and the share that I would estimate as being with white blouses or those with cool tones or warm tones. So really, the power of the assortment mix is to be able to hone down a specific category. And I'm looking here to data for fall 21, but I could also look at data for different markets, different seasons. And this also go back to every single forecast methodology, R&D, all the other expertises that we showed you today are behind the scenes here to be able to provide very insightful actionable data, regardless of your product category and the kind of trends that you're looking for. So unfortunately, we couldn't go much in detail on every single of those features, but I hope this was useful for you. This gave you an idea of our product, what we've been working on. Thank you so much for your time. If you have any questions, don't hesitate to get in contact with our team and know a little bit more about us and our product.